I never thought my family would end up in a courtroom. But there we were, torn apart by a custody battle, and my sister looking me dead in the eyes, asking me to lie. "Please," she whispered. "Just say Dad hit us." My heart stopped. Our father wasn't perfect strict. Maybe too harsh with words, but he never raised a hand on us. Never. I remembered the nights he stayed up with us during fevers, the way he worked 2 jobs so we could have new shoes for school. "If you don't," she hissed, "they'll give him shared custody." I looked at her mascara smeared, hands trembling, and realized this wasn't about justice. It was about revenge. She hated our stepmother, and Dad had moved on. Too fast for her taste. He replaced Mom, she always said. But this wasn't about Mom. It was about power. I stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, unable to breathe. I could end this with one sentence. A lie. One lie that would destroy our father's life and possibly protect us from shared holidays, awkward weekends, and the sight of him holding someone else's hand. I wanted to please her. I did. We were blood. But the truth is a blade, and lies cut deeper. In court, I was sworn in. My hands shook. I glanced at my sister. She nodded slowly, encouraging, demanding. The judge asked, "Has your father ever physically harmed you?" Silence. Everyone leaned forward. I thought of the night he found me crying in the garage and just sat beside me for hours. I thought of the man who didn't know how to say "I love you," but showed it in lunches packed and bike tires fixed. "No," I said. Just one word. Her face collapsed. Rage, betrayal, and something worse, fear. I broke something that day. Not just our case. Not just her plan. I broke our bond. She hasn't spoken to me since, but I still sleep at night. Barely. My sister always acted like she was better than me, even when we were kids. She'd get praise for everything: her grades, her looks, her kind heart. Meanwhile, I was the disappointment, the rebel, the black sheep of the family. She made sure everyone knew I was the problem, and I started to believe it. At family dinners, she'd give me that smug smile when Mom sighed at my career choices, or when Dad joked about me still being single. But what hurt most was how she twisted every story to paint herself as the angel and me as the embarrassment. I moved away, cut contact, tried to build a life without her shadow over me. Years passed. I got a job I liked, made real friends, even started therapy. Then one night, my coworker pulled me aside, phone in hand, eyes wide. "Isn't this your sister?" he asked. I looked at the screen. A live stream, a bedroom, her face, no mistake. My sister, perfect, polished, moralistic, was a full-time webcam model. I stared in disbelief. All those years she judged me, shamed me, and this was her secret life. I felt sick. I didn't confront her. I didn't need to. Word spread fast in our hometown. My mom called in tears. My dad couldn't speak. And suddenly, I wasn't the family disgrace anymore. At our parents' anniversary dinner, she showed up late, clearly shaken. Everyone stared. I didn't say a word, just smiled the same smug smile she used on me for years. She looked at me and knew. She knew I knew. And for the first time in our lives, she had no power. I used to believe we had a normal life. The kind where routine was a comfort, where silence after dinner meant peace, not secrets. Every night at 6:45, my husband would kiss me on the forehead, grab his briefcase, and say he was heading to the night shift at the plant. And every night I believed him, because why wouldn't I? We'd been married for 12 years. We had 2 kids, a mortgage, shared dreams, shared exhaustion. And then one Thursday, I forgot to pack his lunch and decided to bring it to him. I drove across town in my pajamas, our youngest asleep in the back seat, only to find that the plant had closed down 3 months ago. I laughed at first, nervously, thinking there must be some mistake, a strike maybe, or a security drill. But the man at the gate just looked at me with pity and said, "Ma'am, that place has been dead a while." My stomach dropped like lead. I didn't go home right away, drove aimlessly, mind racing, heart hammering, thinking of every moment I thought I knew him, and now I realize I didn't know anything. I waited until he got home, pretending I was asleep. He smelled of cologne that wasn't his, and guilt, thick, like smoke. I followed him the next day and saw what broke me. He was renting a tiny apartment across town, and inside was a child no older than our youngest, and a woman who looked at him the way I used to. I didn't confront him right away. I waited another week, cooked dinner, played the perfect wife, kissed him goodbye each night, and cried in the laundry room. When I finally told him I knew, he didn't deny it. He just stared at me like I was the one who cheated. He said he'd needed something real, and in that moment I realized something horrible. I'd been holding together a life that never existed in the first place, and now had to choose: tell the kids and destroy their father, or live with the lie. I still haven't decided, but every night at 6:45, when the door shuts behind him, I sit in silence and feel everything all at once. When Dad died, we didn't cry. We stood around awkwardly at the funeral, exchanging glances, pretending to mourn a man who spent more time in his garage than with his family. Cleaning out his things was more of a chore than a grief ritual. That's when I found the camcorder, dusty, forgotten, shoved behind toolboxes. Out of boredom, clicked it on, and to my surprise, the battery still worked. There was a tape inside. I pressed play. The footage was grainy, Timestamped 1998, the year my sister disappeared. My heart stopped. On screen was our old basement. My sister Emma, may 6 or 7, sat in the corner holding a doll. Dad's voice echoed from behind the camera. "Tell me what you did, Emma." She shook her head. He raised his voice. "Tell me what you did to your mother. That didn't make sense. Mom died in a car crash. Or so we were told." Emma was crying now, saying, "I didn't mean to. She just fell." Then the camera panned to something on the floor, a red stain. I couldn't breathe. I paused the tape, heart pounding. I thought Dad was interrogating her, but as I rewound and played again, I noticed something else. He was laughing. Quiet, dark laughter. And then he said, "You always lie so sweetly, just like her." The screen glitched. The footage cut. That was it. I sat frozen, trying to make sense of it. Emma didn't run away. She saw something, or did something, or was blamed for something. I showed it to my brother, and he turned white. "We have to destroy it," he said. But I didn't. I watched it over and over. Not because I wanted answers, but because I started to understand Dad. His control, his cruelty, and something inside me, something cold whispered, maybe he was never interrogating Emma. Maybe he was recording a confession. Not hers. His. I haven't shown it to the cops. I haven't shown it to Mom's sister. I just keep it in a drawer, next to my toothbrush. Every morning I look at it and ask myself, who was the real monster? The man behind the camera, or the son who now understands him? When Emily disappeared 5 years ago, we all thought she was dead. The police found her phone in a ditch, her purse beside it, and no signs of struggle, but enough blood to assume the worst. I was 17 then. I remember my mom collapsing on the kitchen floor, sobbing like a child. My dad didn't say a word for 2 weeks. And me? I blamed myself. We had fought the night before she vanished, over something stupid, like dishes or music or curfew, and she stormed out. I told her to never come back. I didn't know that would be the last thing I said to her, or so I thought. Last month, I was in a coffee shop 3 states away, attending a work conference. I ordered a latte, turned around, and there she was. Same brown eyes, same twitch in her lip when she concentrated, but her hair was black now, and her name tag said, "Hi, I'm Sarah." My knees buckled. I walked out, came back the next day. She pretended not to know me. I asked quietly, "Emily?" Her eyes flickered for a second, but her voice didn't tremble. "Sorry, I think you have the wrong person." I left again, but I didn't let go. I waited till her shift ended, followed her to a small apartment complex. I knocked on her door that night. She opened it. No pretense, just silence. Then, "Don't tell them, please." Her voice was raw. She told me everything. She faked her disappearance. She'd had enough of our parents, the pressure, the screaming, the expectations. Mom controlled everything I ate. Dad tracked my period on a calendar. I wasn't a daughter, I was a project. She ran away, changed her name, started over. But the scariest part, she said she never missed us. Not even me. "You were becoming like them." I haven't told anyone. Not my parents. Not the cops. I lie every day to the people who mourn her. But part of me gets it. Part of me wonders if she was right to run. And the darkest part, every time I visit her now, I think about disappearing too. My grandmother always smelled like peppermint and old paper. The kind of person you think holds nothing but recipes and bedtime stories. But 2 hours before she died, she told me something that shattered the image I'd carried since childhood. I was sitting next to her hospital bed, holding her hand, when she suddenly looked straight at me with those clouded eyes, and said, "I killed a man." I thought she was delirious. I laughed, a nervous chuckle, but she didn't blink. "His name was David Keller," she continued, "and he was your grandfather's business partner." My hand tightened around hers. "He wasn't just a partner," she whispered. "He was a monster. He hurt people. Your grandfather was too weak to stop him." I wasn't. She said it like she'd practiced this moment for decades. She told me she lured David into the woods behind their summer cabin, gave him coffee laced with sedatives, then pushed his car into the lake with him inside. It was quiet. He didn't even scream. My mind was spinning. I asked why she was telling me now. "Because the lake's being drained next week. They'll find him, and they'll come looking for answers." Her voice was so calm, it chilled me more than her confession. I didn't sleep that night. I drove to that lake the next morning. There were construction signs, dredging machines, even news crews. She hadn't lied. That week, divers recovered a rusted-out car with human remains inside. Dental records confirmed it, David Keller. The story hit the local papers like a bomb. Cold case resurfaces after 40 years. No suspects, no leads. But I knew. Every time the news showed the photo of the car being pulled from the lake, my stomach turned. I have her journals now, pages of it all. Details only she could know. I hide them in a safety deposit box. She said she wanted peace, but she gave me paranoia. I loved my grandmother, but every time I look at her photo now, I wonder who else she lied to, and whether I'm just the next person she used to clean up a mess she left behind. When my mom died, I thought the worst had already happened, but I was wrong. Her boyfriend, Rick, wasn't just grieving, he became a shadow that hovered over me. He moved through the house like it was his, left his dirty boots in the hallway, drank from the bottle at noon, and started calling me baby girl. At first, I thought it was some twisted way of coping. Then came the touches. Too long, too familiar. A hand on my shoulder that slid too far. Standing too close. In the kitchen. One night, I woke up to find him in my doorway, just standing there, watching me. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. He said we should sell the house and move to Florida, just the two of us. "You're almost 18, he whispered. "You don't need this cold place anymore." I locked my bedroom door that night. He pounded on it at a.m., saying I was being ungrateful, that mom would want us to take care of each other. The next morning, I called my aunt in Chicago. I told her everything. She said one word: run. I packed in 10 minutes, left before he came back from the gas station, but he followed me, showed up at the Greyhound station, screaming that I was making a mistake, that he loved me. The cops were called. I pressed charges. They didn't stick. Not enough evidence. They said, he's still out there somewhere. And me, I still lock every door, every night. And I keep my phone under my pillow, just in case. My brother Alex was always the quiet one in our family, the kind of person who disappeared into his headphones and mumbled answers at dinner. We weren't close, but I still noticed when he began locking his bedroom door, taping paper over the vents, and covering his webcam with duct tape. At first, I chalked it up to paranoia or anxiety, maybe even a phase. Then he died. Just like that. They said it was a suicide. Pills. No note. I didn't cry at the funeral. I didn't understand how I was supposed to feel. We hadn't talked in months. He had become a shadow, even while he was alive. But a week later, I found something. Tucked behind the old board games in the attic, hidden in a showbox, was his journal. Not a diary, a logbook. A detailed, obsessive collection of names, dates, descriptions, of people, teachers, students, a neighbor. There were symbols next to some names, an X or a question mark. Some were circled. One entry chilled me. Mr. Landon watches the sophomore girls too long. Reports filed. Admin ignored. Predatory pattern suspected. That was our English teacher. The next page. Amber, bruises. Said it was from gym class. No way. She was crying after PE. Mr. Landon talked to her in private. There were dozens more. It wasn't madness. It was a pattern. My brother was tracking abuse. I felt sick. I took the journal to my parents. They told me to burn it. Don't drag the family into this. I didn't listen. I showed it to the principal. He read 3 pages, then looked me dead in the eye and said, "These are serious allegations. But Alex is gone. You should let this go." I didn't. I photocopied every page and left them in teachers' mailboxes. I sent them to local reporters. A month later, Mr. Landon was suspended. 2 months later, the investigation expanded. More teachers, more students. They started asking questions about Alex. He didn't leave a note, but he left something louder: the truth. I never thought I'd be proud of my brother, but now, I wish I'd said it while he was still alive. When my dad died, I thought the hardest part would be burying him. I was wrong. A week after the funeral, I received a package in the mail, no return address. Just my name scrawled in his unmistakable handwriting. Inside was a letter, folded neatly, with a single sentence written on the outside: "Read this when you're ready to know the truth." I opened it immediately. The letter wasn't long, but each line cut deeper than the last. My father confessed that the man I had called my Uncle Rich my whole life, his best friend, was actually my biological father, my real dad. Apparently, my mother had an affair early in the marriage, and when she got pregnant, my father agreed to raise me as his own. "You were always mine in my heart," he wrote, "but you deserve to know where you come from." At first, I thought it was some kind of cruel joke, but when I confronted my mother, she went pale and sat down without saying a word. I had my answer. Driven by anger and confusion, I started digging. Old photos, letters, anything. That's when I found the second lie. A hidden document buried at the bottom of my dad's locked file cabinet, an insurance policy with a massive payout, listing me as the secondary beneficiary. The primary, Uncle Rich. Why would my dad leave everything to the man who betrayed him? Unless he didn't write that policy. Unless someone changed it. I hired a lawyer. We uncovered that the signature had been forged 3 months before my dad died, while he was already weak and bedridden. My uncle had visited often during that time, always alone. The pieces fell into place like a slow-motion nightmare. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was criminal. I took it to court. The case is still pending. Uncle Rich denies everything. Of course. But I know what he did. Sometimes I wish I'd never opened that letter. But then I remember my dad's final line: "The truth will hurt, but lies rot your soul." Now I live with both. After the funeral, the silence in the house became unbearable. Our parents were gone, and my sister, 8 years older than me, was now my legal guardian. At 17, I still clung to the idea that family meant safety. I had no idea how fast that illusion would collapse. It started with small things. She stopped making dinner, then she stopped coming home altogether. Some nights, when she was around, her words were sharp, her stares empty. I tried to stay out of her way, thinking grief just made her cold. But one night, when I asked her if she'd help me with college applications, she looked at me like I was garbage. "You don't get it, do you?" she said. "You weren't supposed to be born. You were a mistake." I only stayed because Mom begged me not to leave you. I stood there, frozen. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I thought about the bedtime stories, the school pickups, the birthday gifts. Were they all a lie? I wanted to scream, to cry, to break something, but I did nothing. Because deep down, I believed her. She started locking her room. I wasn't allowed to touch anything in the house that wasn't mine. If I ate something without asking, she'd scream. If I looked at her wrong, she'd disappear for days. I became invisible, and somehow, I thought I deserved it. I began shrinking myself, eating less, talking less, existing less. The school counselor asked if I was okay, and I lied every time. I didn't want to be the reason someone took me away from the only family I had left, even if she hated me. On the outside, we looked like two grieving sisters surviving tragedy. On the inside, it felt like I was being erased on purpose. The day she moved out for college, she didn't say goodbye. I found a note in the kitchen that read, "Don't follow me. You'll be fine. Or not. I don't care." That note stayed in my drawer for years. Proof that I wasn't imagining the cruelty. Sometimes I read it just to remind myself why I stopped hoping. Because hope, in that house, was a crueler punishment than grief. I used to think my uncle was the most reliable man I knew. He never missed birthdays, always called on holidays, and had the kind of calm voice that made you feel like everything would be okay. Growing up, he was more of a father to me than my own dad. My cousins and I adored him. We all did. Which is why, when the news came out, it felt like someone had punched a hole through the middle of our family. It started at his funeral. A woman showed up with 2 kids none of us recognized. At first, we assumed they were distant relatives. But when the woman asked to speak, her hands trembling, and said, "I was his wife too," I thought I misheard. I didn't. The room went dead silent. My aunt, his real wife, dropped her teacup. No one moved. The kids stared at us like we were the imposters. Turns out, my uncle had been living a double life for over 12 years. 2 houses, 2 wives, 2 sets of children, 2 birthdays, 2 Christmases, and somehow, no one suspected a thing. I couldn't stop thinking about all the times he had canceled plans last minute, saying, "work emergency," about how he never stayed the night at family gatherings, about the second phone I once saw in his car, and how he brushed it off as work-related. I replayed every moment, every smile, every word, and everything suddenly felt fake. My mother wept for days, not just out of betrayal, but grief for the man she thought she knew. I went from calling him my role model to not knowing if I ever knew him at all. The worst part wasn't the secret. It was the way he compartmentalized love, like it was something you could divide and manage, like we were just chapters in a book he wrote for convenience. Now, our family photos feel like lies. His voice in old videos makes my stomach twist. The man we buried that day wasn't the man we mourned. And the family we thought we had, it's broken, fragmented, because he chose to be everything to everyone except honest. She never said my name with love, only obligation. From as early as I can remember, she'd sigh when she looked at me, as if I reminded her of a tax she still had to pay. "You wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for her," she'd mutter, especially after a glass of wine. I didn't know who her was at first. A sister? A cousin? A ghost? Eventually, I found the photos, a girl with soft eyes and perfect posture. My mom kept her picture above the fireplace, never letting the frame gather dust. "She was supposed to do great things," she'd say, staring at the photo. Then she'd look at me and sigh again. Once, during an argument, she screamed, "You're not even supposed to be here. You're just the universe trying to correct a mistake." I froze. I wanted to disappear into the wall. But what hurt more wasn't the words. It was the look on her face, like she meant it. Like she wished the other one had lived, and not me. I became obsessed with this girl. I found old report cards, journals, a ballet certificate. She was graceful, polite, smart, everything I wasn't. Mom would compare us constantly. She never talked back. She was obedient. She had purpose. And me? I was a shadow cast by someone else's light. Birthdays were the worst. Instead of singing, Mom would drink in silence. One year, she baked a cake with the wrong name on it. When I pointed it out, she just blinked and said, "Habit." Sometimes I wonder if she ever really looked at me, or if she only ever saw the empty space left behind. I tried everything to win her love: straight A's, sports, theater, even religion. Nothing worked. I was a placeholder, a human bandage for a wound that never healed. Last week, I asked her if she ever loved me for who I am. She didn't answer, just poured herself a drink and said, "It's not your fault. It's hers for leaving." I don't think I was born. I think I was summoned not out of love, but out of grief. And you can't live a full life when you're only meant to fill a void. We were just supposed to have a normal Sunday picnic. My parents packed the sandwiches, I grabbed the old checkered blanket, and my little brother, Max, brought his soccer ball like he always did. We drove out to Ridgewood Park, same place as every year since we were kids. There's this hill we always sit on, half sun, half shade, near the woods. Max ran ahead like usual. He hated waiting. We laughed when we saw him trip on a root. He got up, grinned, kept running. That was the last time I saw him. One minute he was there, the next gone. My parents didn't panic at first. "He's just exploring," Dad said. "He'll be back when he's hungry." But an hour passed, Then 2 started walking the trails, calling his name. My voice cracked after a while. The forest swallowed my words. We told the park rangers. They called police. By nightfall, there were dogs, drones, volunteers, floodlights. Nothing. No jacket, no shoe, no sound. It's like Max just evaporated. For weeks, we searched. We plastered his photo across the town. We begged news stations to run the story. My mom barely slept. My dad barely spoke. People stopped making eye contact. Everyone was polite, but distant-like. We were a walking reminder of something that could happen to them. Some thought he ran away. Some thought worse. I just needed answers. Months passed. Then a year. My parents got quieter. We stopped going to the park. No one sat on that hill again. Every time I close my eyes, I see him running. Then nothing. Just air. It's not the silence that haunts me. It's the questions. Was he scared? Did he cry out? Did someone take him? Did he fall? I hate how memory keeps replaying the same loop. And I hate that the world just moved on. He would have been 15 this year. I imagine what his voice would sound like now. I imagine how tall he'd be. But imagination is cruel. It gives you what reality won't. My family still sets a plate for him at every picnic. The rest of the world forgot. But we remember. We always remember. After my grandfather died, my mother and I went to his house to clean it out before selling. The house was quiet, still holding his scent tobacco, old wood, something bitter. I hadn't been there in years. Everything looked the same, yet smaller. Somehow, we went room by room, packing books, sorting photos. Then upstairs, we found a door neither of us remembered. Narrow, locked. We tried the handle, nothing. My mom said it was probably just storage, but I saw her expression change. She looked uneasy. That evening, I'm thinking about that door. I called my uncle. He had no idea what was behind it. Said Grandpa never let anyone in. I went back, alone the next day, with a screwdriver. I know I shouldn't have, but I needed to see. The lock came off easier than expected. Inside was a room. Small, no windows, a desk, an old chair, 2 boxes stacked in the corner. I opened one. Papers, receipts, envelopes. The second box was full of journals. My grandfather's handwriting, neat, dated. I flipped through pages and pages of personal records, not thoughts or emotions, just names, dates, amounts, loans, transactions, mostly crossed out with notes like paid in full or deceased. One name wasn't crossed out. My father's. A large sum, circled. My hands froze. My dad had died when I was 10. My mom always said it was an accident, a car crash on the way to work. But one entry changed everything. Final notice, threatened again. Says he won't pay. Must act soon. I sat there for a long time. The box still in my lap. My mom had never mentioned money, never mentioned any conflict. That night, I asked her straight out. She said nothing for a minute, then told me to forget it. Said it didn't matter anymore. But I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Guilt. Or maybe fear. I didn't push. We sold the house a week later. I told no one about the room. But since then, the house doesn't haunt me. My family's silence does. I never thought I'd be the type of mother who snoops. But that day, something in me just snapped. Maybe it was the way my son avoided eye contact when I asked about his weekend, or the unfamiliar cologne on his coat, or the receipt I found in the trash. 2 adult meals and a child's. I told myself it meant nothing, but my gut wouldn't let it go. I followed him the next Saturday. I know, I sound crazy. I drove behind his car, palms sweating, heart racing, like I was the one hiding something. He stopped at a modest house in a nearby town. I watched him knock. A woman opened the door, pretty, around my age. And then, a little boy ran out and leapt into my son's arms, screaming, "Daddy." I froze. Time stopped. The air inside the car felt too thick to breathe. I didn't know whether to scream, to cry, or to drive into a tree. I watched them all 3 laughing, hugging, a picture-perfect family. And my son, my boy, looked genuinely happy, happier than I'd seen him in years. I didn't confront him right away. I went home and stared at the ceiling until morning. I looked at baby photos, remembered the way he used to climb into my lap when he was afraid of thunder. I raised him alone. His father left before he was born. I sacrificed so much. My 20s, my career, my dreams, all for him. And now, he had gone and built a secret life with another woman and a child, without ever introducing them to me. Like I was some shadow, a discarded obligation. The next time we spoke, I didn't bring it up. I just looked at him and nodded, while he lied to my face. And in that moment, I realized I no longer knew who he was. And maybe I never had. He hasn't spoken in 37 days. Not one word. Not even a sound. At first, we thought it was shock, or maybe some kind of breakdown. But now, I'm starting to believe he chose the silence. It started when he found the box. We were cleaning out the attic in our childhood home. Dust, forgotten toys, yellowed books, and then, in the farthest corner, an old cardboard box tied with twine. He opened it without thinking. I wish he hadn't. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to our mother, all from the same man, not our father. The handwriting was delicate, almost romantic. The kind of letters people write when they believe words can still fix things. But the words in those letters didn't fix anything. They broke something in him. I watched his face change as he read. Not all at once. Slowly, like a storm crawling over calm water. When he reached the last letter, he didn't cry. He just folded it back into the envelope and walked downstairs. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in the living room, staring at nothing. The next day, he skipped breakfast. Didn't answer when I spoke. Didn't look up when I called his name. Day after day, he sat there still, silent, hollow. I tried to read the letters myself, but he had locked them away. I don't even know what they said. Only that they changed him. Our mother died when we were kids. We never got answers. Only silence. Maybe the letters gave him answers I wasn't ready to hear. Maybe they told him the truth about why she left us. Why she never came back. Or maybe they just confirmed his deepest fears that even love can be a lie. Now, I live with a brother who doesn't speak, who doesn't laugh, who walks through the world like a shadow. People ask me what happened to him. I say nothing, because I don't know how to explain grief that doesn't scream but sits quietly in the corner, refusing to leave. I sit with him sometimes, hoping he'll speak. He doesn't. He just stares out the window. I wonder if he's waiting for her, or for someone to make the pain make sense. When the police called and said they'd found my son, I should have felt relief. But the moment I saw him standing at the station, pale, silent, eyes vacant, something inside me broke. That wasn't the same boy I'd raised. My son had always been full of energy. A little wild, yes. Always running, always laughing. Now, he just stared past me, like I was a stranger. I asked where he'd been. He said he didn't know. Not, I don't want to say, but, I don't know. His voice was flat, disconnected, like someone reading from a script. He didn't hug his mom. He didn't smile at his little sister. He just walked into the house like he didn't recognize it. That first night, he didn't sleep. Just sat on his bed, eyes open, watching the hallway. I tried not to panic. Maybe he was in shock. Maybe trauma did this. But it got worse. He didn't eat for 2 days, wouldn't speak unless spoken to, and when he did, it was off, too calm, too precise, like he'd forgotten how to be a kid. Then the drawing started. Pages and pages of strange symbols, circles, eyes, black shapes. At first, we thought it was therapy. Then we found the knife under his pillow, small but sharp. When I asked why he had it, he just said, to protect myself. From what? He wouldn't say. We took him to a specialist. They ran tests, asked questions. Nothing explained the change. No head trauma, no drugs, just silence. At night, he'd whisper to himself. Not nightmares, more like instructions. Stay quiet. Don't tell. They're watching. We started locking our bedroom door. I feel ashamed even saying that. He's our son, but he doesn't look at us the same anymore. Doesn't even blink sometimes. I've caught him staring at me for minutes without moving. The worst part, I'm starting to avoid him, my own child. I'm afraid of him, and deep down, I don't think he ever really came back.